episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Already off to a disastrous start. As you've seen, I got some weird new message that I have never seen before. And look, it is. I was just about to give this guy a hard time, but there he is. It is a weird Friday. Hello, Fil.
Good morning.
Is this one black, yellow, or red? The one that you just transacted on? Or neutral color?
No, I'm not. I'm not in the process of acquiring another one at this point. So, but I am looking. I'm always looking.
Well, there you go. But needless to say, I must start the show this way. Welcome to Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. I'm in a weird mood today. It's a weird day. It's also 400 degrees in my house for some reason. And I can't go to the studio because the studio has a very crazy, if you were watching the show last night, an audio glitch. It sounds like The Exorcist, like they are exorcising a demon out of a human being, and it is being funneled into my ear holes. So until I get that fixed, I will figure it out. Space Coast keeps telling me it's the internet there, dude. I don't think so, Space Coast, and you and I can discuss this. We can debate this. We can even have a public debate on Patreon if you're willing to, but I'm almost certain, Space Coast, that it is wirings. But what do I know? You know way more than me, so we will figure it out. But nevertheless, we come to you from Studio 1K, named for my beloved mother, Carmela. 1K. The Today Show had 1A. We're in 1K. And yeah, so yesterday, Scott Duffy says to me, hey, I've got a hard out at 1:15. And I thought, he said it's opening day. And in my mind, I wasn't thinking that baseball could possibly have started. So I asked him jokingly if he was on the Philadelphia Phillies, thinking that he was actually in a softball league of some sort, because I live in Miami. And one of the issues with Miami is you have no idea if it's winter, spring, summer, or fall, because the weather here is always the same. But spring has sprung, and you are going to the Phillies opening day game today, Scott. Who are they playing? What times the game start? And what will you be wearing for this game?
So I'm still figuring out what I'm wearing, because every Phillies outfit I have is, is really set for the nice 70s and 80s. It's not going to be out of the 50s. So I have some ideas. I do have a nice Philly World Series knit cap, so that's probably going to be done today. It's a 3:05 game. It was originally scheduled for yesterday, which me and my youngest were going to go to, and because of the rain, MLB pushed it off to today. So that's where I'll be on a lovely Good Friday. Good Friday to all our Phil.
And that's another thing I could not believe. Easter is this Sunday. Is that right? I can't believe it.
So fast.
Is it very early this year?
It is. It's well, it's earlier than it has been, and then I think next year it jumps back.
Wow. Well, first of all, Good Friday, Good Friday to all, and happy Easter to all. Fil Waters, I would have to ask you, a man of God, a man of religion, a man who is a true believer. What do you do on Good Friday, and what do you do on Easter? Is there a special? Do you do something? I assume obviously you're going to church, but is it something extra special for this day? Well, by the way, I'm sorry, Fil, before you answer that, Space Coast, these graphics look amazing. I don't know what this is, but kudos to you. But go ahead, Fil. I'm sorry.
Well, this is the week, right? This is the whole crux of of Christianity. So of course this week is a holy week, and starts with Palm Sunday when Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey and palms put in front of him, and to great glory. And then by the end of the week, he's being crucified for all of us. And then, of course, beyond that, he defeats death. And so, this is the week. This is the most important week. No other individual on the face of the planet in any time has ever had the impact on the world and on mankind as Jesus Christ. And so, this is very important. I mean, yesterday was Maundy Thursday, and that was when he was in the upper room and washing the disciples' feet and taking part in the Last Supper, and knowing that he was going to be betrayed by Judas later on in the garden, where he was praying and asking for this cup to pass. He didn't want to do this, but he followed his Father's direction, and he went through it. And so, this is the most important week. Tonight we'll be going to the services at our church for Good Friday, and then, of course, we'll be Sunday celebrating the resurrection in church on Easter Sunday.
Teresa has a question for you, Phil, and then we'll move on to our story in just a moment. But for Phil, do you eat only fish today?
No, that's probably a Scott question. Do the Catholics still eat only fish on Friday, Scott?
Well, some non-meat item. It doesn't have to be fish. It could be any other non-meat. But yes,
I just remember in elementary, junior high that my Catholic friends always served fish, on Friday. It was that square fish that nobody knows where it comes from, but So no, I no.
Well, once again, a good Friday to all. It's starting with STS and a happy Easter. And it's hard for me to believe that it is already Easter. And Maria here says that she eats fish too as a Catholic. So there you go.
There you go.
Here's the question. Am I missing something? I thought this was about P. Diddy. We're actually going to just be talking about Easter for the next. No, we are going to talk about Diddy, and we're getting to that in a moment. But if you are new to the show, Fridays are a little bit different here, where we talk about a lot of other things. I'd be remiss if I did not ask Scott Duffy. It's his sort of, kind of, not really, neck of the woods. But Scott, what a crazy, horrific tragedy this week with the boat accident, the ship running into the bridge, the Francis Key Bridge.
Yeah.
I assume you've been on that bridge many times, Scott Duffy.
Yeah. So, even though my home office was Wilmington, Delaware is a satellite office of our headquarters in Baltimore. So whenever I had to go into Baltimore, I would go one of two ways. I would either go through the Fort McHenry tunnel and go around, or sometimes the tunnel gets really backed up, so you scoot over to the Francis Scott Key Bridge. So when I saw that, I was hoping and praying for anyone on the bridge, but also the many FBI personnel who would travel that way, that they were not on that bridge.
What a horrible tragedy. Hoping that, and the people who are dead were, wage day workers, and just horrible all around. So there we go. On to by popular demand. We're going to talk about Sean Combs, otherwise known as P. Diddy, otherwise known as Puff Daddy, otherwise known as just Diddy. Fil Waters, can you name his record label? Do you happen to know his record label?
I
assume you're.
Wasn't he up there with Suge Knight and those guys? What is it? Murder something, or what? I feel it was some.
Space Coast, what was Suge Knight? Yeah, it was murder. It was, I don't know, was that murder? I have no idea. But to answer your question,
Death Row Records or something like that. Was it?
yeah, but that's not him. That's not him. Maybe it
Oh,
is
that's not
different.
him. Okay. Well, then no,
Yeah,
I don't. I don't.
you don't. So he is the founder, Fil Waters, of Bad Boy Records.
Okay. Well,
And it probably fits his name now that we're going to discuss this case. And it's an interesting story, and I would like to get Fil and Scott's investigative take on Bad Boy. There we go. Bad Boy Records. Yes, it is. People are jumping in. So he is the founder, Fil and Scott, of Bad Boy Records and a 3-time Grammy winner. He's worked with a slew of top-tier artists, including the COE, the notorious COE's favorite, and that is the notorious B.I.G., Mary J. Blige, Usher, Lil' Kim, Faith Evans, and 112. Haven't heard of, well, some of these I have heard of. He also created the very popular clothing line, Sean John. He launched the Revolt TV channel with a focus on music and produced the reality show Making the Band for MTV. But now Diddy is in a different place. And people say that they hear Fred. Fred will not let me keep him outside. He's in the house here. And at any moment, he'll be begging to come on my lap, although he is exhausted. So earlier in the week, I think the world heard about this. There was a raid at P. Diddy's home, and they're not messing around. You can see there this green SWAT truck. He has a home in Los Angeles and a home here in Miami. So on Monday, these two properties, Miami and LA, both belonging to Sean Diddy, were searched by federal Homeland Security Investigations agents. It was part of an ongoing sex trafficking investigation by federal authorities in New York. Scott Duffy, the minute I read this, I immediately thought, I need to talk to Scott. Why is it that Homeland Security was raiding his house? Typically, we see the FBI, but these were all DHS agents with DHS initials on their back. And by the way, initially, and still to this day, it is not 100% clear who the target is. They believe it is Diddy himself. But Scott Duffy, talk about this coordinated raid on both homes, Miami, LA, and why was it not your former agency, the FBI?
Yeah, good questions. And so some years back, I don't have a year in mind, but as human trafficking, as child pornography cases just began to just explode across the world, that the FBI has always been tasked with investigating, being the lead investigation into these violations. And then as it just exploded, as I said, the HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, they also have been tasked. And so it's kind of like adding more resources to what is just a growing problem. And just like in the drug world, many federal agencies can investigate drug trafficking. So the FBI, even though the DEA is the lead agency, and of course ATF. So there are lead agencies that would be in charge of certain investigations, federal violations, but Homeland Security has been provided a lot of resources, government funding, and have been doing a great job in tackling and this just growing. It's just amazing. Human trafficking, both of juveniles and then of course adults, and of course the prevalence of child pornography and productions. So kudos to them. And yes, the targeting of any, when you do any type of searches that must be coordinated between you have federal, state, and local that are there, and then of course the lead being the federal agency providing the resources, etc. But it takes a lot of coordination in order to 2 different time zones hitting what you need to do at the same time, because you don't want one location calling the other. Hey, get rid of evidence. They're hitting this. Maybe they're going to come to you. So that takes a lot of coordination. And my guess is you have to get some stipulations within the court, because there is a typical time that you can enter into a home without some sort of government exception. And so thereby on the West Coast is going to be a different time. And so thereby, if they're entering into a home earlier than what might be your typical time, then there has to be an exception that's granted by the court.
Duffster, during this is the first time I've ever called you that, and I hope it's okay, but I like it.
Yeah.
The Duffster. Did you say you're taking your son to the game? But you have more than one son, don't you?
I do. I have 4 altogether, three boys and my daughter. So my youngest is going, and then
And did the other ones hate you for this?
no, not everybody's into baseball. My daughter's working, so I have 2 tickets. I can only take who I can take. But then tomorrow I'll be back with
You're going back. And do you have season tickets, or being a renowned retired FBI agents, do people throw tickets at you, which is kind of
People
awesome?
do not throw tickets. They could, but they don't. And but I do have some good friends who help me along the way, so I can get different kids at different times of the season. It's a little chilly today, so I'm more of a fair weather. I enjoy a summer hot night.
Last question for now. Obviously, there'll be many more to follow today, but you're in, let's just say, row N, section 123, seat 7. Let's say section 123, row N, seat 9. There's a brawl today. What do? Do you step in and break it up, or do you just eat your popcorn and drink your beer?
Yeah, I'll make sure whatever I have is not going to be spilled. There's no need for me to get. There's plenty of CSC or security that's at every one of the sections, so I'll let them do the job, because nothing like a bunch of alcohol and a lot of people getting involved. I may even jump back a seat.
And the Philadelphia fans are obviously notoriously let's say they're passionate.
They're passionate, but every game I've been at, I have not seen any issues, at least in the baseball world.
Football's a different beast. But back to Diddy here, and I'll have many follow-ups on that from Jenny Price. This is to Phil, who's going to shake his head and get his panties in a wad, which is why I'm throwing this to him. Jenny Price is asking, have you heard the rumor? The rumor's already out there, Phil, that this raid was actually to hide evidence, that the federal authorities were hiding evidence and not taking it. They're calling him a black Jeffrey Epstein, and to save the uber wealthy who he was helping traffic young boys and women to, and girls, that they are now aiding Sean Combs to make sure that the material does not get out to the public. He's scratching his head. Phil, your response, open-ended. Your response. That's an open-ended question.
Well, let me understand the question. That Homeland Security is somehow protecting what this Puff Diddy or Flip Daddy or whatever his name is.
Let's call him Flip Daddy. Yeah, they're protecting.
Is that what I'm understanding the question is?
100% yes. There's rumors out there already that because he is the so-called black Jeffrey Epstein, that there are people high up in the government that don't want information out there. Now, there are very likely very high-profile people associated with this. I don't deny that. But would would DHS be helping to cover stuff up, is my question to you, and Jenny's question to you?
No. I mean, that is ridiculous. These people that come up with this crap. I was a little bit on another view of this. I was a little surprised at the way that they conducted the raid with all of the. I mean, Homeland Security has an office in the building that I'm in. In fact, they're they've got the entire second floor. So I see these guys in their little, hut outfits and and they had one, in fact, one of these big green armored vehicles was sitting out in the parking lot the other day, and they were all out there, got their little HSI stickers on the side and paint on the side, and it's all very, here we are who we are, and that's all wonderful. I just was a little surprised at the way the search warrant was executed. However, I would imagine that they have knowledge of what kind of threat level there may be inside that huge compound, estate, and so that calls for that type of making sure that the safety of the agents and the safety of the occupants of that residence. So that was quite a raid. And I know when I have been on the execution of search warrants where you had a federal nexus, and in a couple of cases that I worked, we used the FBI SWAT team. I knew a couple of guys that were on that team, and they would come in and much the same way would execute the search warrant in much the same way. I mean, got their hut outfits on, and here we go, and we roll in, and they go in and they hit that thing and get it secured quickly and make sure that those people are under control very quickly to prevent anybody from being injured or hurt. So, but this, I mean, there are people that just sit around, just wait for something like this to happen so they can generate a bunch of crap to confuse everybody. And what I'm surprised at is now there may be an aspect of this that, Piff Flitty or whatever his name is here, that he may be a Jeffrey Epstein type guy. And there may be people, well-known folks that are caught up in whatever it was he was involved in. That's certainly possible. So, I mean, look, he's not the first one. We had R. Kelly and all that stuff that he was doing, but that was kind of his own thing, doing his own thing. Now we got this guy, and I mean, these guys, come on. I don't, but to get back to the original question, so I think that's just somebody's just trying to stir the trolling pot, as it were.
Fil Waters, do these DHS guys, and I don't know what a hut suit is, but
well, there they are right there. There's go back to the picture of the where they got the big armored vehicle there and all that stuff. There you go. Yeah, there they are. They're all up there in their hut outfits, and yeah, there you go.
Now let me ask you something.
Scott knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I do.
Fil Waters, when you walk into that building and they're on the second floor, do they realize that you are America's most respected detective? Do they respect you and greet you properly? Because if not, I'm going to come out there and kick all their asses. Do they?
You're talking about here in the office?
Yeah. Do they know who you
building?
Are? Yeah. Do they know who you are?
Well, there's a couple of them that do, but there's a.
Because they might be staring down the barrel of my 45.
I do not have access to the second floor. I mean, in fact, the elevators do not go to the second floor unless you have the key card to get you to the second floor. So, and then I park in the garage on the third floor, which they have almost the entire third floor, not all of it, but they're all sequestered, but their vehicles are all behind this large gated thing. And now the other day here, and I don't mean to get up on a tangent here, but the other day I came into park, and I park in the same place every day, as you can imagine. And so I came in one day, and the third floor has very, very few people parking on it, except for the caged area for the Homeland Security. So I come around the corner one day, and where I park, there's usually maybe 4 or 5 cars. But there were like 30 freaking vehicles, and I couldn't park where I usually park. So I'm thinking, okay, there's something going on, an operation of some kind. So all the guys they brought in other people, blah, blah, blah. Well, it stayed that way for like 2 weeks, and it was really irritating. So I had to park in a different spot. And then I see they've got the doors open on some of them. Now they put cones out, and they won't even let me into the area where I was able to park, not in my space. So now they're really encroaching on all of us, normal people. But what I see they're doing, I see hoods are up, tailgates are up, doors are open, and there's a van sitting in there, and there's all sorts of stuff sitting around. So I see 2 guys standing there talking, and one looks like he's the guy in charge. So I walked up to him, and I said, when are you going to let us civilians get our parking places back? And he kind of laughed. There was that guy standing there, and the other guy didn't laugh. The other guy I don't know what he thought. We were going to throw down or something. But and so the guy starts laughing. He goes, we're gonna he said possession is 9/10 of the law, right? And started laughing. And I said, really? I said, well, that didn't answer my question. When are you guys getting this crap out of here? So he said, he goes, well, it'll probably be another week or so. And I said, what are you guys doing? You putting in your radios and your sirens and your lights and all that stuff? And he just kind of looked at me. And he said, well, something like that. I said, okay. I said, well, I'm retired HPD homicide, so I know what you guys are doing. So he kind of laughed, we shook hands, and it was pretty funny. And then within about a week, they were gone, and I got my parking place back. But so those guys, they're stand-up guys. I was on a SWAT team and at one point in my career, and so I wore the hut outfits, and we had an armored car and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they're good guys. Yeah.
And I love that you told them you're retired HPD homicide.
Well, a couple of them had, because of where I park. I'd parked my 308 up there, and so of course they come out and people will see me and they'll comment and this and that and this and that, and then a couple of times when I'm just in my car, my regular car, in fact, a gal the other day said, you're the one that drives that red Ferrari, right? And I said, well, yeah, that was me. So they kind of know me through the Ferrari more than who I was in my other life. So,
more than legendary homicide. By the way, for those who are tuning in to watch Diddy, Puff Daddy, P. Flitty, we are going to get to it. It's Friday. It's a special day here at STS if you're new to the show, and we go off on tangents. A couple of follow-ups there. Fil Waters, if this guy continues to give you a hard time, I'm going to fly Space Coasting myself in to handle business for you. So you just let me know. And the second thing is your red Ferrari. I can't imagine someone taking your space because I know that you're a man of consistency, who likes things to stay the same day in and day out. But when you do park your red Ferrari, do you park where you take up 2 spots so no one can hit your door, or do you just park?
No. Well, the Ferrari's in Hawaii, so that wasn't the problem this time in the parking thing. But no, I don't, because I see people that do that. It irritates the crap out of me, and I think people that are prone to react to something like that are more apt to go over and run a key across a car that's got 2 spaces than one that is respectful of the surroundings. So I just park my cars back in an area where it may be a little longer walk, but I kind of back in a little more remote area. And of course, then there's always some idiot that wants to, there's 15,000 parking places available. And where do they decide to park? Right next to me. So,
And Fil Waters, this is a hypothetical. Let's say you're coming out, I always say Target, which you've never been in. But let's say you're coming out of Target, you're parked there in your red Ferrari, and you see someone keying the side of your Ferrari. What would happen at that point?
Oh, well, there'll be some physical contact.
There will. Okay. Interesting.
And let me correct you again. I will not be coming out of a Target. So let's just get that straight away.
They'll be staring down the barrel of Phil's 45. Anyway, we're back to Diddy here. And I love this comment here from Meg P. By the way, I'm sure if I scroll down to the chat, they're going to say, why don't you let Scott talk? Everyone relax. I haven't seen the comments yet. I know they're coming, but I had to pull over and park and participate. LOL. I have an STS Chat Addiction. As Phil likes to say, it's better than marijuana, and as I like to say, it's better than crack cocaine. So, Meg, you're okay, and I'm glad you pulled over, because most people will just be chatting while driving. And please do not CWD, chat while drive. We're actually going to take a deep dive into this story today, because I'm pretty interested in this. The question is for Scott Duffy from Annie K, who always has great questions. How hard will it be and I'm going to bounce to the end of the chat. So if you had another question, please put it back in, because I'm going to scoot down now and put in triple Qs. You got two of the best investigative minds here talking about Pliff Flatty, whatever we're going to call him. And so put in the triple Qs. But how hard, Scott Duffy, will it be to prove human trafficking when some people return many times to be re-victimized in this case, and we don't know all the victims? So your response to that question.
Yeah, so I've worked a couple of human trafficking cases, and they are very difficult to prosecute. So, you have, so let's just start with a juvenile, 15, 14 years old, in whatever country, this country as well. But the human trafficking cases that I've worked were typically coming from South America through New York into Delaware. So the people that you're dealing with, first and foremost, the victims, it's very difficult to even get a proper ID. A lot of the ones we have spoken to right off the bat were very suspicious of law enforcement in general. And you don't have a whole lot of time because a lot of these girls, especially that we were interviewing, were very short periods of time, because you would get them away from the house, away from their handlers, and it would typically be on some sort of errand that they're doing. And it's a car stop, and you're trying to quickly assess some information. So you're dealing with people who you don't have proper IDs with, who are very suspicious, fearful of law enforcement, have years of been victimized by their handlers. And so 14, 15, 16, and then into adulthood, they're brainwashed. And that's a very difficult. So I understand that question. What we have to try to do, because we know what's going on, is to get a victim to ultimately break those years and years of abuse and victimization to where they are being fed, to where they are receiving some sustenance. And that's what they know. And so you're trying to undo years of brainwashing, and then to tell them, hey, testify, et cetera, et cetera. So fear of their life, fear of their families, and then fear of the unknown. Where am I going to be after? You're going to deport me. So they are very difficult cases to work, and just extremely sad, because that's what you're dealing with, even though you know what's happening there. So, for example, hey, typically they were flop houses. There is we know who's coming into those houses. A lot of men paying for sex. That's another difficult thing because how do you get somebody in there who's going to be able to just kind of figure out what's happening informant wise without participating in the sex activity, because we're restricted. It's just like an undercover cop. Hey, I'm not going to be smoking marijuana and doing coke and doing all that. So there's a lot of restrictions on informants, government undercovers. So we know what's happening, but proving it is very difficult. Very difficult.
And Homeland Security released a statement. In it, they say that they executed, and I quote here, law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation with assistance from HSI Los Angeles, HSI Miami, and our local law enforcement partners. And again, it was interesting to me, Scott Duffy, nowhere at all did I see the three letters of your former agency. Why wasn't the FBI involved in any capacity? Because I would think, this crosses state lines, et cetera, and is it just because you only need one federal agency involved at a time, or is there, what's the answer to that?
Yeah, they have the same mandate, HSI, and so they can work parallel investigations or investigations. Like I said, there's multiple federal agencies that can investigate the same violations. And typically, HSI is big enough where they're going to be able to, very similar to the FBI, work with your state and local partners and execute search warrants, make arrests, etc. So HSI is simply doing exactly what the FBI would do, and they're also doing their due diligence as as Phil can easily say. How many times law enforcement can step on each other if they're holding things so close to the vest. And it's very possible that you could have had FBI, HSI, or any type of three letters going into the same target. And there's been a couple of situations where we have gotten into a target and getting ready to move forward and realize, hey, there's another agency that's working the same person who may have more evidence. And so there's that little bit of a power struggle, but ultimately it resolves itself in the end. So HSI is totally capable of doing an investigation like this. And that's probably why you wouldn't see another federal agency other than their state and local partners.
And Scott, one more question. Look at this. The balance is switching to Scott now, but it's people in the chat were asking, and I'm wondering, you were just mentioning that it might take a victim or a witness who was in, watching all this play out to sort of flip on Diddy or expose him. And two people that come to mind who are high profile, but were there as very young children, like teenagers, were Usher and Justin Bieber. Is it out of the realm of possibility that federal agents are speaking to them already to ask them to get information from them? Or do they go after the big fish later on? Or because they're celebrities, they leave them alone? What is the protocol on this?
Yeah, they're not going to leave them alone because they're celebrities. But they are going to do due diligence, right? You have celebrities that have the pulpit, so to speak, of being able to go out and try to get ahead of it and say, hey, HSI or whatever agency's knocking on my door. They're trying, or you may have their publicist or defense attorney already making statements because information shows from investigation that, hey, there are multiple high-level public figures, and they could be business partners, one not knowing what the other's doing, etc. But the questions have to be asked. So you rest assured that if other individuals, so first of all, what it took to do a search warrant, that in my mind is the heart to reach that level of probable cause to hit two locations. To me, takes a tremendous amount of investigation. And so now, as a result of what they recover from those search warrants, digital media, whatever it is that they pulled, and then time to analyze it, are now going to figure out, putting pieces together, who else is involved, or could be either somebody who's going to be a cooperating witness. And a cooperating witness typically means somebody who has knowledge of the criminal activity, but it may be better for the government prosecution to say, you're going to be a cooperating witness, an unindicted co-conspirator, so to speak. In other words, you could be indicted, you could be charged, you could be this, but perhaps there's enough evidence to show, thereby they fall on the sword and they're like, no, just point the direction I need to go. And so they could be potential testifiers. So yeah, in something high level as this, there's no, I would be very surprised if that's the only public figures that have knowledge of this.
And Scott, this is a question I would normally reserve for Fil Waters, but I must ask. Hypothetically, you're in Homeland Security, and hypothetically, you are tasked with interviewing Usher. Would your first question be, Mr. Usher, would you like me to call you Usher, or would you have to call him by his real name? I don't know what it is. Would you ask him his preference? In other words, do you prefer I call you Joe Smith or Usher?
Yeah, as Fil has said on many previous occasions, that first introduction is how you build rapport, and so if he's known as Usher to all his fans, but to his family, friends, and inner circle, he's known as something different, whatever that name is. I'm going to afford him that, saying, "Hey, I'm an outsider, and this is what I'm investigating, and first and foremost, how do I refer you to?" So, and allow him to make that distinction. And he may start one way, and then as the rapport is building, he may say, "Okay, go ahead and call me by my first name." So that's how I would.
And would you ask for a selfie and an autograph, or would that be inappropriate under the circumstances in the interview room?
I got cameras, so I'll worry about that later. Those snapshots.
All right, good to know. Fil Waters, by the way, the U.S. Keep in mind, this is a New York investigation. So the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, they declined to comment on all this, which is no surprise because the state prosecutors usually don't talk. But question for you, Fil Waters: would these simultaneous raids be taking place if there wasn't already investigative material of a very serious nature that they had on this guy? In other words, would they raid two of his homes simultaneously when they know the world is going to cover, literally the world is going to cover this, unless they had something in their front or back pocket? So the follow-up question to that, I guess, is Diddy, in your opinion, in a world of trouble right now?
Well, of course he is. I mean, that they have to have probable cause to execute these search warrants. So that's up front. And I'm sure, given the high profile nature of this thing, that I would hope they've got all their I's dotted and their T's crossed on these search warrants. And their probable cause is pretty healthy. So I'm not surprised at this in that sense. They would not execute these search warrants unless and look, I'm assuming they're executing federal search warrants. And I can tell you now, sometimes the feds, when I work narcotics, sometimes the feds would have us actually run a state search warrant, and they would accompany us because state search warrants are they're not as difficult to put together. The federal search warrant, I think Scott backed me up on this, they're ridiculous in what they have to put into these search warrants. And if they're running a search warrant at night, there's a different set of criteria for that. So I mean, there's a whole lot of things with these federal search warrants that are much more detailed, more requirements than there are at the state level. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying that they're different requirements. And so I would be curious to know if they ran a federal search warrant or ran a state search warrant based on the information that the feds developed. Now, I would just imagine that, to answer my own question, because of the high profile nature of this in other locations and so forth and so on, it's probably a federally driven. The search warrants themselves are probably written up by the AUSAs.
And Phil, just to follow up with Gretchen I here, why did this raid happen now? Is there an answer to that? Why now? Why not 2 weeks ago? Why not 2 weeks from now? Why not 3 weeks ago? Why not 3 weeks from now? Why when it happened?
Because it was the right time for it to happen. I mean, you got to schedule at some point. So they had their act together. They've got the planning's been done. I tell you something like this, where you've got such a large area and a huge structure behind security type apparatus, gates and walls and so forth. It takes a lot of planning to coordinate. I'm just curious if they had the layout of the property. I'm sure they did. They had the layout of the house, the floor plan of the house. Because when you execute a search warrant, you have to go into every area of that home and secure it, and every area of that property and secure it. So it's much like a military operation. You have what is in essence a 5-paragraph order, and you follow those things and you fulfill all those requirements, and then you execute it. So the timing, it was time to do it. They had what they needed. They had the probable cause. There may have been some concern that he had gotten wind of it and he was getting rid of evidence, possible evidence, that kind of thing. So there's no telling where the source of a lot of this came from. They may have had somebody inside, a mole inside of his operation that was providing them information. And they may have said, look, he's fixing to do this and that. And that was the timing of the search warrant. I mean, we'll never know, I don't think, until it gets to the end of this thing, and whatever happens, and then we might get access to those records. But I don't find anything odd about it. It was time to do it, so they did it.
There you go. It was time. Scott Duffy, a lot of people are asking, number one, Lorna McKenzie's question, why is it taking this long to investigate him? Because there's been rumors about this for upwards of 20 years. And the second question is, why would they execute these search warrants but not arrest the man? Why not arrest Diddy? And by the way, the person who's being detained there, Diddy has 2 older adult sons, and that's one of them. The 2 sons did get detained and were released. Thank you to Dom's mom here for gifting 5 Surviving the Survivor memberships. Very kind of you. But why no arrest?
It could be that they don't have the probable cause for an arrest. So the probable cause to enter into a search or to do a search warrant of a house would be to gather additional evidence in order to pinpoint the target of your investigation, in this case, P. Diddy. So it's also possible that P. Diddy is not, let's just say there's enough evidence against him, but not enough for a couple other individuals they want if they're doing a dragnet. And so it's possible this search warrant will spawn some additional contact or whatever have you, in order to check those last few boxes. But it's with regards to the search warrant, hey, you have enough to say there's general criminal activity of human trafficking to get into these 2 houses that happen to be owned by P. Diddy. And so we're going to act on that investigation, that evidence we've collected. Let's go into the houses and then get additional pieces of evidence. And once analyzed, if they have enough then to put probable cause affidavit against P. Diddy and others, then that's when they'll execute them and et cetera. So, these things do take time.
Scott Duffy, if you're a betting man, if you're a betting man, will Diddy be arrested sooner than later? And if you say sooner, how soon do you think?
Yeah, that's it's tough. I mean, let's just say it's anybody else, and this is what's happening, and it's not under public scrutiny. You go into a house and you don't have probable cause. You're just making a choice. Hey, it's not the right time of the investigation to make an arrest of the subject of the investigation. But typically, after a search warrant of a house, businesses are what they're. I would be surprised that it would take more than 30 days, a month, 2 months. You're starting to get, but I would say 1 to
Wow.
3 months would be your typical of an investigator searching a house of a subject who's not going to be arrested on that day. Gather the evidence. If the evidence is there and analyzed, I would say any time 1 to 3 months. It takes, especially if the magnitude of these locations.
Is there a possibility that we get off air today and he's arrested today? Is there always that chance too?
Sure, there's always that chance. I mean, they may have something that, hey, lead investigator, look at what we found, and that's that last piece of evidence. They've already built their probable cause affidavit for an arrest. It's just they need those final pieces. Is it also possible that no arrest is made? Always possible, but I, like Fil said, it's a tremendous amount of work and evidence that you have to have collected to get into those houses, and I do not see that being the end. They typically result in an arrest.
Reading through the tea leaves here, it sounds like Scott Duffy and Fil Waters are saying this is some serious crap going on, and P. Diddy is going to be arrested. That's how I see this. Fil Waters, Michelle, the very great questions are coming in, much better than I could ever provide. Someone in the chat said he's so full of himself. This is it. This guy is full of himself. I didn't know if she's talking about me or Diddy. I hope it's Diddy. And then we've got someone from England, but someone was asking Fil Waters, obviously a very high profile celebrity with powerful friends, up to no good, apparently. If someone was to come forward who is not as powerful and had receipts and had information and said, I'm only going to talk, would they offer something like witness protection to someone like a state's witness here, someone turned state's witness?
Well, certainly in the scope of an investigation of this magnitude, and if there's somebody that is there's a genuine threat to them as they get through the investigation and the possibility of testifying in court and that kind of thing, then of course there's a witness protection program that they could be placed into, and the U.S. Marshal Service is the one that monitors the witness protection. So.
Scott Duffy, they set up, this is interesting to me, that they set up a command post literally outside his LA home. Is that typical to set up a command post? Because that is like sort of the equivalent of marking your spot. If you're a dog, you're like, here we are. And not only are we here, we're setting up this command post. And then we find out that they emptied safes, dismantled electronics, and there's video of this. They left paper strewn in some rooms. They did not touch the Grammys, by the way. And they disabled his security system and seized the hard drive. What's going on with disabling the security system? And what do you make of these other bullet points I just read to you?
So start with the latter. Disabling a security system would be for the protection of those operating inside. So once agents have control over location, and here because of a search warrant, they have a right to ensure the safety of all those involved? And is it possible that somebody on the outside is watching and monitoring, and for whatever reason could, uh, um, from another location, whatever it is, or instruct somebody to go and do some sort of distraction? Anything could happen, and so it'd be for the safety. That the number one priority is the safety of your personnel during the execution of that search warrant. That's why you have anybody that's on scene is just going to be detained. If they're not part of the investigation, they can be patted down, make sure there's nothing that while they're there, and then get out, disappear, leave the property. And if you're going to choose to stay on the property and not part of the investigation, and I've done this, it will be you're staying in this spot. You most likely will stay handcuffed, and somebody's going to babysit you. So in that regard, I can see disabling a security system to protect the personnel, and as well too, wherever they're going, the idea is that they may be utilizing technological tools that they do not want out there, and so thereby could be used by the a criminal element to try to, oh, that's what law enforcement's using now to get into my safe, or to do this or to do that. So in that regard, just shut the system down. What was the other question?
I have no idea, but let's move on to this comment. Great answer, though. Tralavine one. Fil Waters, some serious accusations, or I don't know, comments. I don't know what the word is here in this comment. Diddy is about to take down all of Hollywood, all of it. Jay-Z, beyond. I don't think Al Pacino's in trouble. I don't think Steven Spielberg's in trouble, but Jay-Z, Beyonce, Prince Harry, and former President Barack Obama. Yes, you read that right. Former President Barack Obama. Research adrenochrome. I have no idea. It's not for the faint of heart. But the bigger question, the reason I brought this up, obviously we're not conspiracy theorists on this show, but I'm just going back to Epstein for a moment, Fil Waters. It appears that he had dirt on a lot of powerful people. And it appears that Diddy could potentially have dirt on a lot of powerful people. What do you do in this situation to protect? I mean, we saw what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. Do you fear there's a chance here that something could happen to P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs? What do they have to do? Because we're talking, look, we're making fun of the people who are these conspiracy theorists who are saying sort of some outlandish things. But is there some truth, a kernel of truth, to the fact that if he was dealing and trafficking people for very powerful people, that those very powerful people don't want information being leaked, and that he is potentially in some sort of danger? Is that out of the realm of possibility in your thinking?
Well, I'm not given to hypotheticals or speculation on stuff like this, because I don't want to get involved in the conspiracy, conspiracy crap that goes on. I would just say that this is a similar situation, at least it looks like on its face, to the Epstein thing. And I can tell you that when the Epstein thing finally exploded, there are a lot of people, high-profile people, politicians, entertainers, royalty, all sorts of people that I'm sure you could hear the collective slamming of their butts at the same time, because they know that at some point what their participation in this thing was going to come out. Now, this is the same thing that's going to happen here. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are some very high profile folks that are sweating right now and hoping and praying that they may get looked over or didn't get revealed in all of this. But I have no doubt that there's a collective of folks that are really, really worrying about what the ripple effect is going to be to this execution of this search warrant and in the future, any arrest of Flip Diddy or, this guy. So I would just say that it's going to be interesting to watch it roll out. And I don't know, in a situation like this, I know that, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but and I don't know if in this particular type of investigation, but in many, many cases, at least the FBI guys that I work with, and what the FBI's policy is that if you're a target of an investigation, you're notified by the FBI that you're a target, right?
Yeah, there will be a point now that the searches have been executed.
Yeah.
Then a target letter is going to go out. So
Right.
you're right. It's more than likely if he wasn't handed that target letter that day or wherever, I think they came across him at a tarmac. I could easily see.
Yeah, that was probably all done at about the same time, right?
Yeah, he was caught not far from me, like 20 minutes from me, in a place called Opelika, which is a private executive airport that I don't fly out of.
So
but
here's your target letter, and oh, by the way, we're giving you a homecoming.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Wow. I never knew that. It must have very fancy embossed Homeland Security letterhead on it. I hope I
no,
don't.
we didn't do that we don't do that at the state level. I mean, we don't tell people. I mean, by the time they know that they're a target, they're in handcuffs the way we were. But
and that's an interesting question. By the way, it's King and Justin Combs. When you look at this photo, it's one of the two who are being detained. Those are the adult sons, King and Justin Combs. Scott, when, it's not an if here from Miss T, and it sounds, if I'm hearing Fil correctly, it might be a when as well. But when Diddy gets arrested, will he go to New York without bail? What say you?
Yeah, so anytime a target of my investigation was arrested outside my district, so I operated in the District of Delaware, if I needed to go, and I participated. I've actually been to Houston a few times and other cities where I would go out, I would fly out, I would participate in the arrest, because there are times when you can pass things off to an agent and say, hey, can you complete this action? And there are other times where I'd be like, no, I would like to be part of that interview. I can't give enough information to a secondary agent. And so we would fly out, but I would not fly back with the individual. They would be processed in that district, and they have a right to fight removal. And so there will be a hearing, typically anywhere within a couple of weeks. There will be a detention hearing. And in that detention hearing, there is no bail in the federal system. So it's a matter of you're either going to get out and after your preliminary hearing, and then ordered. So he would take himself to New York. But if they felt there was going to be a jeopardy to the investigation, typically it's flight.
Well,
It's
Scott, what
harm.
about that? I mean, this guy owned, by the way, no one really knows where he is. And whatever people use, whatever public database people use to track these celebrities' jets, he was asked to be opted out, and I think that happened. I don't know how, but he has access to a private jet. At one point, they thought he was in the Caribbean island of Antigua. And then, according to page 6 in the New York Post, they say that he was traveling to the Bahamas on his private jet with his 2 daughters. But I mean, what do you do? Because this guy's got the keys to a plane to get out of Dodge whenever he wants. Is there going to be a point in the next couple of days where they seize his planes or take control of that so he can't leave.
Yeah, that's all part of the huddling that's taken place with defense attorneys that may already be involved, the prosecution. It could be, hey, we're working behind the scenes to a surrender. There's going to be an arrest warrant. All those things could take place. And when you have somebody of such a public nature, the government is going to bend over backwards somewhat to say, hey, what if you do flee to another country that we have no extradition with, then so be it. And all those things are being discussed to where if there is an arrest that does, for example, there could be a summons, hey, respond to New York. And he goes to New York and surrenders himself to New York and then to face continued detention. It's all possible. And all that is probably being worked out if they ultimately are moving towards an arrest, and then all that. Also, for example, and I've been part of these negotiations for individuals when you arrest them in another district, and we have to show as investigators, I'm not in fear that they're going to take out my witness, and I feel comfortable that they're not going to do harm to themselves, and that they're not going to flee the country and forever remain on the loose. So you give them that option to head to that court, your district, and when they surrender, that's a good sign for the defendant. And if the defendant wants to put up a defense, don't hold me in detention until my trial, that's going to fall on the side of the defense. Hey, I went exactly where you told me to go, and so I'm not a flight risk. All those things come into play.
Fil, you're a student of human psychology in a big way, human behavior. You're almost certified to be I would say a psychologist at this point with the amount of people that you have dealt with. But Ned Smith with a great question. By the way, Ned Smith says, I wish Diddy would spend his Diddy dough on rescuing animals, but we don't live in a world of rainbows and unicorns, Ned Smith, and this guy is not that kind of guy. So I don't think that's what he's spending his money on. But Fil, what would be his motive? This is a good question. For trafficking, he's a bazillionaire. Is it that there's never enough money? Is it that he had everything and he's deranged and said, well, it'd be a good idea to traffic, underage girls and boys? What's happening here psychologically? Why would he be doing this with all this fame and fortune?
Well, that's his particular. If this is true, that's just his particular perversion. And people that gain power and money think they can do anything and not get caught. And that may be the situation here. There's a situation with Epstein. I mean, the thing about, I guess the difference between Epstein and Piff Diddy here is everybody knows who Flip Dip is, right?
Yes.
Not too many people knew who Epstein, except for those people that ran in those circles. The politicians, the Bill Clintons, those people. So once he was actually, pardon the term, but exposed, then all the other players start to come out of the woodwork. In this case, he's already a worldwide, everybody knows who this guy is. And so, and look, this isn't his first brush with some criminal activity. So he was involved in shootings and that kind of thing, and he was able to walk away from those kind of things. And so I'm not surprised at this. I mean, you've got an industry that bases most of their stuff on misogynistic, abuse, sexual abuse, minimizing, being disrespectful of women, period. So I'm not surprised at all about this particular activity with this guy. And, this kind of stuff, you don't know when this stuff starts or why it started. But at some point in time, if it turns out he gets arrested and prosecuted for this stuff, then it will be revealed where it started, how it started, and how it continued on. Because something like this doesn't just happen in a vacuum and now all of a sudden Homeland Security is on this guy. This is something that's been going on for years. And now it's finally, he may be thinking to himself that he's so big now that I can't be touched. But somewhere here, somebody has let the prolific cat out of the bag, So it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves into a possible prosecution and then seeing what is revealed in that, because that's when this stuff will all start coming out. But I don't, it's going to be, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, given the background here.
Nothing surprises Fil or Scott. I have learned that. What was the one thing that sort of surprised you, Scott? There was one thing that sort of surprised you. I can't remember what it is.
Oh, yeah.
STS Nation will remind us. Something did surprise Scott, and it was something kind of very out of left field. Something that I didn't think would surprise him, though, from what I remember. I have no idea, but someone here will remind us. But believe it or not, we haven't really gotten to the meat and potatoes of this because I like to drag things out. We're about to do that in a moment. But Scott, from Rosemary Romero, I was going to say, could Rosemary Romero's assets be freezed? But that wouldn't be nice. But could P. Diddy's assets be freezed if he gets arrested? Could they put a hold on his bank account so he can't go and withdraw money, let's say?
Typically, the prosecution, the federal government is not going to get involved in asset seizures unless they have a belief that the assets he has have been obtained by illegal means, right? So if his human trafficking allegations turn into charges, et cetera, but it's not what is providing his income and his way of life, then it's probably not going to move to seize those assets that otherwise a drug dealer who has no source of legitimate income but has a tremendous amount of assets. Then yes, I moved forward to get those assets held before they disappear, as the trial gets closer. So I wouldn't suspect they would go that route for somebody who has a tremendous amount of legitimate income coming in.
Scott Duffy from Jennifer Hardy. Why wouldn't they wait to raid the house when he was actually there, if in fact he is the main target? We don't know for 100% sure whether or not. I mean, everyone's assuming that he is, and it makes sense that he would be. But why not wait till he's in the house? And then we're going to get to the meat and potatoes. And little bit, look at this. She says, Scott, so handsome and smart. Wow, very true. Why wouldn't they wait, Scott, for him to be home?
A little bit. Thank you. That is a good question. I like the tail end of her question, though. If he is the target, so if he is the target is one thing. Are there multiple targets? And if they didn't have now, so I would wait if the target I already had an arrest warrant for, or if I believed I need one piece of evidence. The prosecutor said, Scott, you need one more piece of evidence. And if it's in that house, I want that target in handcuffs. Okay. But if if the investigation is already led, no matter what we find, no matter what we do, we're not arresting the subject we're looking for on that day, then it doesn't matter. So
I love James Hetfield. I got all excited. People say that is Fil Waters here.
My wife actually agrees with that.
There you go. Look at
I
that.
showed her a picture of, and she goes, "Well, yeah, okay."
Yeah. Well,
And let me say something about why wouldn't they execute the search warrant when he's there?
Yeah, please.
Excuse me. That may have been by design. They did not want him to be in these structures when they executed the search warrant. That may have been by design. They knew where he was when they executed the search warrant. So that may have been a timing thing that was purposeful, which I can understand why they might want to do it that way. So I don't find anything particularly weird about that.
Look at this. Jimmy McNutty, handsome Scott. Is Fil chopped liver? Phil's handsome in his own way. Yes, he is.
In my own way. Yeah, I like the way they put that.
you can let that off.
Ned Smith, look at this. The question of the day. We're talking Diddy. And what kind of car does Scott drive? I'm thinking of Volvo. Is it, in fact, a Volvo, Scott?
No, it's not a Volvo. Though my youngest wants a Volvo. No, it is not a Volvo.
Toyota.
It is I do have a Toyota 2009 Corolla.
Look at that. Look at that. He's a.
But what do you drive, Scott? You didn't answer the question.
So I drive whatever's available. That's what I drive. So my wife.
So now the next question is, what's available?
Yeah. So I have a Kia, I have a Honda, a Hyundai, and Toyota. Okay. And so whichever one of the four available, it's what I'm driving.
They're saying a Subaru, and the list goes on. Okay, so meat and potatoes. And Scott, file this away in the back of your head because someone was asking about. Let's just get out of the way. Someone was saying Diddy should be very scared of RICO charges. What does that mean in English here?
Yeah, RICO is racketeering. There's a racketeering and corruption. Phil, do you know what the RICO? I used to know it in
racketeering. I don't remember what the I means, but the organized, organized crime, criminal organization.
I'm going to Google that right now.
Yeah, I would say that's
racketeering. It's
racketeering. The Racketeer Influence and Corruption Organizations Act.
Yeah. It's very possible that they're looking at a RICO, and a RICO traditionally would be a big umbrella. That's ultimately you try to tackle a gang in a RICO. This way, low-level gang members who may not know what somebody else is doing over there, who also may not have been part of, let's just say there's murders and drugs and guns and prostitution, that everybody, no matter what level of participation in that organization, can be charged under this umbrella RICO, and they're severe sentences. And so it really tells the group, anybody on the low level, don't try to go down for anybody who's the puppeteer and the one controlling everything. Now's the time to get in the door. We say the first one in the door or get the better deals. So it's possible.
We're gonna look at this. Carmela Corleone. Of course, that is my mother's name, although Carm spells it with a K. She's named after, my mother's named after Mount Carmel, by the way. She once told me, Happy Easter, always Good Friday, STS. Love from Toronto, Canada. I'm coming to Toronto for a book signing. No one asked, but I told you, and I will actually have a graphic for that in a few moments. This is the meat and potatoes. And by the way, Scott Duffy is playing in the game today, so he has to leave in about 25 minutes, and we will get through the end of this and the crazy stories of the week all in that time, and say goodbye and wish everyone a good Friday and a happy Easter all in the next 25 minutes. So buckle up. It's going to be a crazy last 25 minutes. People are saying that the trolls are out in full force today. Well, they can suck it and buzz right off. How's that? Anyway, sorry. That was the Jersey in me that just slipped out. So there was a flood of lawsuits in the last few months. A guy named Rodney Lil Rod Jones Jr., Phil. A guy named Rodney Lil Rod Jones Jr., February 26th. He is the producer who was working in concert with P. Diddy. he filed a 73-page complaint with photographs, graphic details, and other non-sexual offenses, alleging that Sean P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Pliff Daddy, whatever you want to call him, had drug, threatened, and sexually harassed him while they were working on his 2023 album, the Love Album, Off the Grid. It sounds like he's way off the grid, Sean Combs here. Combs' lawyer at the time this was filed fired right back and said that Lil Rod is nothing more than a liar. On and on it goes. In February, that is this guy, same thing. But then an R&B singer who is Sean P. Diddy's protege comes out and alleges years of sex assault, including rape. She is the R&B singer Cassie. She says that she was forced to have sex with male prostitutes. This lawsuit was settled one day after it was filed. It was settled one day after it was filed. Another accuser says that Diddy raped her 2 decades ago when she was just 17. And a very prominent New York attorney representing Cassie, his name is Douglas Widor, he came out and said, hopefully this is the beginning of a process that will hold Mr. Combs responsible for his depraved conduct. And then after the fourth lawsuit, he posted Sean Diddy, P. Diddy, P. whatever his name is, on Instagram. This was after the fourth lawsuit in this flurry of suits. And he said, for the last couple of weeks, I've sat silently and watched people try to assassinate my character, destroy my reputation and my legacy. Sickening allegations have been made against me by individuals looking for a quick payday. Let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things being alleged. I will fight for my name, my family, and for the truth. It leads me back to my original question, which is, would they ever be conducting these searches, doing what they're doing, if they didn't have some proof in the pudding, Phil?
Well, of course not. Again, they've got to have probable cause. Excuse me, to execute a search warrant, period. So they've got that. Now that, excuse me, does not necessarily mean that they have enough to move forward with a successful prosecution. That's the purpose of the search warrants, to gather evidence. Is there evidence there that is going to lead us further, these affirmative links to all these different accusations and possible charges later? So there's no telling. We don't know how long this investigation has been going on. And this is one of these deals. This is kind of like you get a crack in the dike and then you get another one and another one. And eventually the dike blows up and here comes the flood. So that's what's happening to him. And his response to this is what anyone in that position is going to respond to. Of course, they're going to vehemently deny any of this happened. But when you've got, under these circumstances, I mean, these are pretty graphic. I mean, they're accusing him of sexual assault. And it's a range of people. So it's going to be a tough road, I think, ahead for our topic today. I think he's going to be he's treading water right now.
I hate to bring up this next area of this conversation with Scott's virgin ears, but Scott, please bear with me as you hear this, especially on Good Friday. I'm sorry I'm about to do this to you, but there were these things called the Miami Freak-Offs. These were parties at Miami's most luxurious hotels, the Mandarin Oriental, the One Hotel. These are all big, the Fontainebleau, which is where they filmed parts of Scarface. These are all iconic landmarks. But they say it wasn't just Miami. It was also five-star hotels in Atlanta, New York, Las Vegas, and Los Angeles. They said these sex parties that Diddy was throwing were so brutal that young women and men who were lured into attending them would often vomit and pass out from being drugged, beaten, and raped, sometimes for hours on end. And P. Diddy, Scott, would film these allegedly, at one point even taking someone and dangling them over a 17th floor balcony. That may have actually been Cassie, the woman at the center of this, but they even dangled someone off of a balcony. And let's put it this way. I have a friend in New York who's a very high-powered banker. I happen to go to college with him, and he just sent me a text message randomly the other day saying he knew a woman that went. This is not 1,000% vetted, but I'm just telling you, he's a player in the finance world in New York, and he said he has a female friend who went to a Diddy party once and blacked out and woke up with a black eye, which is kind of crazy after this news broke. So, Scott, just these allegations, people are vomiting, these dangling people over the balcony. And by the way, when they did the search warrant, they found that he had hidden cameras reportedly in every room of his Los Angeles mansion. Is it where there is smoke, there is fire, Scott? Is this going to be hard to get around for him?
Yeah, I mean, where there usually is smoke, there is a fire. And as Fil said, is a very high bar to get a search warrant, a federal search warrant, to 2 different locations. That takes a lot. You can't just go and hit every house that he's living at and say, let's hope to find evidence there. They already have to have evidence, probable cause, to say those 2 locations will have evidence we're looking for. Let's just hope that we get there before it's gone. That's ultimately what a search warrant does. So all these parties, all these years of conjecture and whatnot, it's rumor until it can be corroborated, and that is very difficult. But you get multiple parties saying the exact same thing. You put digital devices that can say, okay, guess what? We went to those hotels and corroborated you're on there, or a credit card receipt, or all these little things, or to grab, probably not video, because video is easy, quickly written over, but the anything that could corroborate that. Perhaps somebody took a picture inside one of the rooms, and all that in congregate is evidence that ultimately, and then not only that, of the years, but search warrants say we don't care what happened necessarily so long ago. Is this continuing? Is an ongoing thing? And what the probable cause must be fresh. It must be relevant. It must be happening now. So it's not like they're going to go to, oh, Netflix came out with a couple of documentaries, and let's go take that and throw it in a search warrant and go hit a couple of houses and hope for the best. That's not what's happening. And investigations took place, and they found what was being said credible, and then corroborated, and that's what leads them to the locations that they went to. So yeah, again, going back to that one chat statement, if he was, so, for example, let's say there's other parties, notable figures or not, that have equal access to these locations, and so let's start here and then end up that the owner of these locations most likely is involved. Any one of those circumstances or combination of is damning, and so I do not foresee these search warrants just kind of like going away, and no arrests, especially their targets, just kind of getting away with this. I just don't see that. These search warrants typically are imminent indications of an arrest.
Reading the tea leaves, I would say that Diddy is screwed. Someone else who could be screwed is Cuba Gooding Jr. He was named in legal action related to this, as is Young Miami, spelled Yung. Thought it was a guy. It's a female. And she is named as well. So it seems like a lot of dominoes are about to fall. But much more importantly, look at this, Scott Duffy. Scott, I've got season tickets behind the Phillies dugout. You've got an open invite whenever you want. I'm coming for a book signing. We should all go, PSS, if they're in town. I will let you know. Patty Martin says, I feel very badly for Justin Bieber. He's really messed up from what Diddy and Usher. They were with him young, and they look a little. There's very disturbing video now. In hindsight, when you watch this video, it's a young 15-year-old Bieber with P. Diddy, and it's disturbing. That's all I can say. And this, I don't really know who Meek Mill is. Very peripherally, I do. I've heard of him, whatever. He's supposed to have had a sexual relationship with Diddy at some point. This sounds like an absolute mess. Rosemary Romero, to answer your question, it sounds like very soon. On to a couple very quick stories, and then we will wrap it up. Fil Waters, we're all used to mass shootings in this country. Well, this past week, maybe we have something else to look forward to. There was a mass stabbing, 4 dead, 7 hospitalized. It happened in Rockford, Illinois on Wednesday afternoon. The victims were a 15-year-old girl, a 63-year-old woman, a 49-year-old man, 22-year-old man. Speaking at a news conference, Chief Carla Red said that these people were in critical condition. A bunch of them obviously died. She called it a multi-jurisdictional event. And I'm looking for the suspect here, who was a postal worker, was one of the guys who died. So horrific. I can't find right off the top of my... the suspect here was a 22-year-old unnamed male. He was taken into custody. My question to you, I mean, this is obviously incredibly rare, Fil Waters, but in your time, did you ever see a mass stabbing incident? And why mass stabbing? I guess that was the only weapon this person had available to them.
Well, I have. As a matter of fact, I worked a scene where 3 people died as a result of knife wounds, and it was pretty brutal. Of course, the person that ultimately won used a handgun. So, you know, it's the old saying, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. But so, yeah, I have seen that. I've worked a case where 3 individuals, it was also a gang-related type thing, but nonetheless, the use of knives and yeah, it's a pretty bloody scene when you get a knife involved, and it's the wounds inflicted are pretty horrific. So I can imagine this one was much the same as what I've seen.
Scott Duffy, New York City seems to be in decline. And one of the reasons is in the last bunch of weeks, young women have been walking down the sidewalk unsuspectingly and then get punched in the face hard. A lot of them with marks on their face. They've been, of course, what young women would probably do. They go on a TikTok and other social media apps to talk about what had just happened to them. Even Bethany Frankel, who's on Shark Tank and a bunch of other stuff, she claims to have been a victim. They did have a person in custody. It's unclear if this person is the person who did it or not. But this is the kind of thing that can really, really disturb a big city, because suddenly you've got a random person punching young women in the face very hard. Literally, women are going to be afraid to go outside. What do you do in this case if you're the NYPD to try to make sure you've got the correct purpose? Oh, Phil's got his finger raised. Fil Waters, I must go to you.
I just want to add something to this. And the distinction is they are young white women.
Yes.
So,
yep.
Anyway, go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry. Just wanted to throw that in there.
And they do believe that one of the suspects that they have in mind is a black male. So that in this case, it is important to point that out. Scott Duffy, if you're the NYPD, what are you doing here? Because very quickly you might have an all
think we're running the show there, Phil.
What?
I think we're running the. Are you froze? Is he frozen? I'm frozen.
Oh, Joel is frozen.
I
Yeah.
think so. Okay.
Either that or he's remarkably well controlled there. So I don't even know if he can hear. What was the question, Scott? Well, let's go ahead and answer the question.
Let's run our own show, Phil.
Yeah, there you go. Let's just take over. So what was the question that he asked about the assaults in New York City, the young white women that are being assaulted?
Like what would NYPD do in order to ensure the person they either have in custody or keep them in custody and so forth? I think that's where he was going with this question.
Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah, you're back. We were carrying on in your.
I can sort of hear you. It wouldn't be a day if our Fisher Price podcast set didn't fail me in one way or another. But at some point we will look at this. I am back and better than ever. But Scott, my question to you was, what do you do if you're the NYPD? This could potentially be a big problem. It could scare a lot of people. And my Wi-Fi seems to be teetering, but slowly coming back.
Yeah, I mean, and these have been going on for, at least from what I've seen, popping up on a news agency throughout the year, and then they kind of died down. And Philadelphia for some time had these flash mobs, and then they were all social media to boost social media. The people would come down and then the idea would be just cold cock anybody of your choice at random, and it's first and foremost, it's for their entertainment. It is to boost whatever it is that they're doing on social media, TikTok and whatnot. But I could see that happening. But this
That's good. That's good.
Look at this. It says CrimeCon Nashville, 3 amigos. I feel like Scott, and look at me. My head looks like it just exploded out of a volcano or something. But I do like this. T-Pain, as per usual, please send this to us. The final story, I don't even know where we're at now, but it's time to slowly wrap up here because I would hate for Scott to miss that first pitch of opening day. Fil Waters might have something to say about this. Sam Bankman-Fried. Crypto guy. I'm a little upset about this. He stole billions, like $8 billion from people, hardworking people, and he got 25 years. Why didn't this guy get more time, Fil Waters?
I was a little surprised at the sentence. I would have expected that he would have at least gotten twice that. He's I mean, we have the Madoff. How many years did Bernie get? Did Madoff get?
A lot more, as far as I know. And
and I think didn't he die in prison, or did he get out?
He died in prison.
Yeah. So, Bernie, and he just stole. I don't think he stole billions, did he? Did he just steal millions?
I think it was millions, and this guy is literally like 8 billion.
I guess. Whether it was millions or billions, I guess neither here nor there. I guess the point is that he sir, I'd be curious to go back and see how much time he got, but I think it was more than 25 years. I may be wrong about that, but I was a little surprised given the scope of what this guy stole and or scammed, this cryptocurrency, which is all a scam anyway. But little surprised at the sentence. That was. But he's really, I watched some of his testimony. I watched some of his interviews, and he's a goofball, right? He may be 100%. Incredibly smart, but he's goofy.
Madoff was sentenced to 150 years.
Okay, well, there you go. Thank you so much. We've got such a smart audience here.
We do.
That's awesome. So 150 years for what he did, and this guy, what he did is triple what Madoff did. So and so I was a little shocked at the 25 year, but the guy is I mean, he's as good. He's as goofy as an outhouse rat, right? I mean, there's something. The guy's just. He's a very. He's kind of a sympathetic crook. I mean, people. The friggin' hairdo from outer space, and all that, and just the way he talks and the way he expresses himself and that kind of thing. He's almost. When I first saw him, I'm thinking, is this guy really that smart? He kind of comes off as being kind of dopey, but he was smart enough to, defraud all these people, but not smart enough to curtail it or keep it covered up. So 25 years, pretty light sentence. And was he convicted in federal court or state court?
I believe it was federal, but
if he's in federal court, then he's going to do the 25.
Yeah. He said he was whining that his life is basically over. That's what he was complaining about.
How old is he? He's like in his
maybe early 30s. I have no idea.
He's got a whole. He'll get out in 25 years. He'll be 50 something years old, and he can go on and sell hot dogs at the fair or something. So he'll be.
His afro will be I don't know, the size of the cell by the time he gets out of there. Look at this. Ned Smith says, congrats. We found out late last night, believe it or not, I got a text message at like 11 o'clock at night saying that we, in fact, are invited to CrimeCon officially. We are on what they are calling Content Row. So thank you very much to CrimeCon.
Cool.
And these are the photos from last year. You see Fil Waters with his what's the word? His trademark Hawaiian shirt there, and his shakalaka boom boom Hawaiian gesture, and Scott and myself all at CrimeCon last year. And then on the right, of course, the Carm, one word for her, one word for Oprah, one word for Carm, and my kids, two of my children. I only have 2 daughters. So we will be there. Remember, we are getting things underway here with Patreon. We put this up the other day and everyone said, hey, I'm a Patreon member. These are just some of the members. Bronwyn Roberts, Margaret D597, Bridget Dunnington, Laura Emelina, Angela Sadlowski, Sherry's News. I think there's 2 R's in Sherry, if I'm not mistaken. Angelina, Catnip15, Jet Wilson, Dynell, and Robin Ray, who I saw in the chat today. And please, if you want, support us on Patreon, and we're going to be doing some new dynamic things on there. This is why STS is an amazing community. Look at this, Fil and Scott. These 2 beautiful women were speaking to each other in the chat, and Catherine on the right and Nancy on the left. And Catherine lives in Maui on the right, and Nancy was going out to Hawaii, and they were talking in the chat, and they said, hey, let's meet up. And guess what? Because of STS, they met up in Maui, and they are now friends for life. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So shout out to Nancy and Catherine there. And then I don't know if you've heard, but I've written a book. Scott, have you heard? I don't know. I'm not sure if you've heard that. I have written a book.
What?
And with the book, there's a book tour. Look at this.
Oh, look at that.
May 6th, I'm going to be at Temple Menorah. This is Holocaust Memorial Day, so I'm speaking at a synagogue. Boston, May 16th. It's actually 7:30. The COE got it wrong, but whatever. Queen's Books in Toronto. There's going to be a couple of Toronto places. Tallahassee, June 6th. Please come out to Tallahassee. The Citadel in Miami, which is where I wrote the book. They're having me, which is cool. Books and Books in Miami, which is my birthday and my mom and dad's anniversary. Although my dad's no longer with us. So that's
where's Houston?
I'm coming, Phil. Don't you worry. I'm coming. I am coming to Houston. I can't do it all in the first couple of weeks. And then going to be in Los Angeles at the Grove, which is a hip little spot. And we're working right now on a book signing in Chicago. I'll be in Chicago. So, and by the way, Philly, Scott Duffy is right after Toronto. I'm literally going from Toronto to Philly. So Philly will be around the 23rd. And Scott Duffy, if you get baseball tickets and you don't come to see me in Philly, there will be hell to pay. I'm telling you that right now. So that day, and who knows, maybe the Philadelphia shoulder surgeon will come and we'll all go to her dugout seats. Would you be opposed to sitting behind the dugout, Scott?
I'm there.
You're there. Beautiful.
That's
beautiful.
Great invite. I think we should take her up on it.
Am I allowed to ask this publicly? And if no, say no. But aren't the two of you getting together for something related to something with Scott in the very near future?
Yeah.
I run a police conference, so it is a police training 3-day seminar conference. It is I think it's the third week of April this year, and Fil is one of our guest presenters.
And when is it? The third week of April, did you say?
Yeah, 23rd through the 25th.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is amazing. This is unbelievable. Look, I'm bringing people together in Maui, and now I've got Scott and Fil coming together. This is really quite the community. Someone says Madoff took $60 billion. Is that right? That seems
Did
like
he? Okay.
Awesome.
Well,
that seems like a high number. I don't know. Who knows? Rosie Wood, she just sums it up so well. Scott is such a cool person. I would have to agree. Lindsay says that's awesome about your thing. Rosemary says, great show. We made it through Friday. And here we are. Scott Duffy, let me ask you this. You go to the ball game with your son. I assume you drive because mass transit in Philly is not much of anything. And then will you enjoy a beer and a hot dog? What's your usual situation? And how many layers will you be wearing, by the way? Because me, I'd be in a down comforter for 50 degrees.
There's a good wind going on today. The sun is out. But I will have a couple of layers, my hoodie, my knit, my FBI, or my Phillies knit cap. So I'll be dressed. I'll be ready to take off a few layers if need be. Being it is Good Friday, so it's a tough, it's a baseball game and of course Good Friday. I haven't done both in the same ever. So this is the first. So it's a combination. Though I'm with my youngest, so it'd be great. We'll be celebrating both the somber, but also what Good Friday is all about, and enjoying some good family time with a whole bunch of other Phillies. And they're playing the Braves, so we'll see. There might be a few Braves out there.
Yeah. By the way, have you thought about maybe putting Chi-Chi, the chinchilla, in your inside pocket to keep you? Because he likes to burrow. He would keep you warm. It would be like a ball of warmth. Have you thought about this?
He'd be a good scarf for sure. That's a good. He might get confiscated, so I don't want him to wind up in Philly's jail.
I would have to be wrapped in a mink coat with a scarf and thermal underwear for 50 degrees. Otherwise, I would not survive. Fil Waters, it is Good Friday. You already told us you are headed to church this evening. What other weekend plans? What are you going to do for Easter Sunday? Do you have a big meal? What do you do? Do you go on an Easter egg hunt?
Yes, we're going to go to to my daughter in Houston, her family. We're going to be going down there. My wife is doing what she does, and she's cooking up roasts, plural, and all manner of food. And so, yeah, we will be in a celebratory mood at her home in Houston. And since we're in the Holy Week, so I just want to part with this. Can you imagine that the Son of God, Jesus Christ, died for all of us after being scourged, desecrated, vilified, disrobed, and hung on a cross, murdered? For all of us, taking every sin that had been committed and will ever be committed upon himself. Jesus was a real person who died a real death for an eternal purpose, and who then conquered death, the only one, to save us from ourselves who are so undeserving of his sacrifice. His greatest heartbreak would be not spending eternity with each one of you. So that's where the choices part of life comes about. And I would just ask that everyone would think about it.
Beautiful way to end the show. All I can say to that is Good Friday. Have a Good Friday. Have a great Good Friday and a happy Easter. Love these two gentlemen. Love having them on the show. Love STS Nation. Love you, America. Love you, Houston. Love you, the Big Island of Hawaii. Love you, Philly. Go Phillies, but go Yankees more. See ya on Monday. Chad Daybell's trial starts Monday. Check out our other channel, Best Trials. Will be there, gavel to gavel. A 10-week trial with one defense attorney, John Pryor. That's insane, but we will have it on our Best Trials channel. You better subscribe right now because there's going to be chat and legal commentary going on, and we're going to be doing a Chad Daybell story on Monday night, and then Lori Vallow's family's coming on Thursday night, and we're going to be following the Diddy story. We're going to be following Sebastian Rogers and a whole bunch of other Matty Soto, Stephon Stearns. The alleged killer is in court on Tuesday. We'll be doing a Matty Soto story on Tuesday. Think of her. Think of all these victims. Have a good Friday. Have a happy Easter. Love you all.